Hello everyone. So today we are going to cover how do we communicate from child component from the from child component to the parent component. Okay, yesterday we covered how do we communicate from parent to the child. This is in this video we will be covering from child to parent communication. So let me log into Salesforce. And this is, this question is extremely important. They will obviously ask you that how do we communicate from child component from the parent component. They treat it as trickier than how do we communicate from parent to child, because parent to child was quite straightforward. But here when we communicate from child component to parent component, we have to use the custom events, and that makes it bit trickier. If we have not done enough practice on this, then they might ask a couple of questions which might be quite tricky. Okay, and do we have Dharmesh here join today? Dharmesh, are you? So what I want is that he couple of days ago he sent an PPT sheet on which there were a couple of Lightning Web Component questions. So I also want to cover that. So if somebody can, just again send that to me on the WhatsApp, that will be great. I'll be able to cover that. All right. Let me open the Lightning Studio. So what I'm going to do, I will create two components again, and one will be the child component and one will be the parent component. So see, first you need to understand that how do we communicate from child to parent is that we first, create a custom event on the child component, and then we can inform the parent component about that a custom event has been triggered on the child component. So with the help of custom event, we kind of send a notification to parent, and then parent will be able to understand that something has happened on the child. And now it depends on us if we want to just notify the parent or if we want to send some data to parent. That is an optional thing. If we just want to trigger an event, we can do that. And if we want to send some data as well, then that is also possible. So there are basically two ways to do that. Okay, and I'm going to show you both of these ways. Let me just first get the theoretical part straight. All right, so calling parent using simple event, which will not have any data, is the first option, and calling parent using event with data, that is the second option. Okay, and third option is event bubbling. Okay, which is basically related to event propagation, which we will cover at the end. All right, so let's start with the first example. Let me create the first component, right? I will name it C2P, which basically tells the child to parent component. Okay. Expose this. This will have I am going to do it on the home page. And let me open the GS file as well. So this is the parent component. Let me similarly create a child component as well. Open the GS file as well. So far, so good. Let's just add the lightning card. And name it. It is child component. What we need to do, we need to put the child component inside the parent component to make them, parent and child relationship intact. So C2P First, all right, so far so good. All right, what I'm going to do, I'm going to add this on page. So this is my office phone. Just a second. Let me open the sales app. Page. How you guys finding Lightning Web Component? Do you find it hard or do you find it easy or okay? Is it something which excites you, like you want to build something on the UI? You feel excited when you see these things happening on the page. How are you finding Lightning Web Component, guys?
Interesting.
And is it Vikas?
Lovely.
Okay. Yes, this is very interesting. When I learned Lightning Web Component, I felt really good because most of the time we worked on the backend related things where we do not see much happening on the UI. But I think here we see a lot of things happening on the UI, which keeps us occupied. And debugging LWC is also fun because when you do not get data, you have to debug it a lot. And yes, of course, it requires a lot of practice. So there is no shortcut. Okay, practice is something which we have to do, and more we practice, the more confidence we get in this. Okay.
Yes.
But sometimes it's like little bit of uh, like so when I got stuck in any of the issues, so at that time it makes me really upset. Like I mean, kind of frustration or something. Yeah.
Yes, and
I
sometimes
mean, after a lot of debugging, even though I do not figured out like where is the exact the issue.
correct.
So it is like once in a while. Yeah.
See, sometimes LWC does a lot of weird things. So even if you have changed something in the backend, that might not be reflecting in the UI, or sometimes you will get just the weird error like this is not a function or this is not an event, which it is really hard to debug. But the good thing is that we have now a couple of tools like ChatGPT, Bard, and all, where we can actually put our code and ask them what is wrong with my code, why am I getting this error. They kind of give us direction sometimes, and also there are a lot of help available on the Google as well in terms of LWC errors. Initially, when we started, it was like a black sea. Nothing was available. You have to figure out on yourself. So we used to keep on doing all these things like put this keyword and do this, do that, do differently. We were not aware. I mean, see, traditionally we are a Salesforce developer, so we do not have much experience on debugging the UI. Like we are not traditionally a web developer or something who can play with the console a lot. So then you learn how to play with consoles and how to debug those things with the help of the console inspector. So those things is something which you will learn gradually. There is a very good video on how to inspect, how to use the inspector, the Chrome inspector in the best possible way. Like someone was telling me yesterday, like we can add the breakpoints and all. Yes, there are so many things you can do there, and that will help us a lot in debugging. But currently what we are doing is very simple, parent to child or child to parent communication, which can be debugged even without adding any breakpoints and without going a lot in the console. But there are so many things you can do in the console inspector. So I will find that video for you guys so that you can do that. Just like we have like prospective manager in the debugger, Salesforce debug console, we can inspect this as well, and that will give us all the information we need. So that is also really good. We are able to get our parent component and child component. Let's see how we are going to communicate from child to parent. Now let's say there is an input field on the child component, lightning input. Let's say I'm going to put a label enter name. Okay. And on the change of this, I have a handler. Okay. I can say name change handler. So what is my use case is that whenever this name changes, I need to inform the parent component. Like I need to notify the parent component that something has changed in name. And then based on that, parent component might have some logic to implement or something. So currently we will not be passing data. We will just be, using a simple event and informing the parent component that something has changed. So first we will put the code on the name change handler. Let's first create a name variable as well. Let's call it name. Name change handler will get the event and we will say that this dot name equals to event dot target dot value. And after that, we will have to create a custom event. Okay. And that custom event will do what? It will do nothing. It will just inform the parent that something has happened on the child. So how we write a custom event? Const, we can write my event, and then we have to create a new instance of custom event. Inside that, you have to give the name. So name could be, I mean, this is a kind of, you could have any name. You can say it as child event or something. And if you want to pass data, then you can pass the data by comma, but I will show that in example 2. Initially, we will just trigger this, and how we gonna trigger it is that this dot dispatch event, and inside that you will tell the name of your event. So whatever variable you created for your event, you will put the name here and try to save it. This is what you need to do on the child side, like create an event, create an instance of the custom event, and then dispatch it. And in the parent component, what you need to do, so in the parent component, you already have this child component added. Okay, what you need to do on the parent component is that you need to go to parent component, and on the you have to basically tell that we have received an event. So that how we gonna tell that we have received an event or something? We have to, in our child component we have to add the handler. Okay, so whatever the name of your whatever the tag you have for your child component, there you will go and you will add on, and then whatever name you have provided here. So what you have provided is child event. Just copy it. Okay. And with the help of on, just append that. Okay. So by doing this, we are saying that whenever child event occur on this component, we will call this handler. So this is the handler we will put in the parent component. Okay. I can name it parent event handler, and this will only be called whenever child event will occur on the child component. Okay, so let me save this. Let me copy the name and put some debug here so that we will verify if it is getting created or not. Okay, and here I can put a console log, and I can just type in that parent event handler has been triggered by child component. Okay, so your child component is not passing your child component, and the event you have created in your child component is not passing any data, but it is just informing that whenever this happens, whenever we change the name of it, okay, this name change handler will be called, and this name change handler will trigger a custom event, and this custom event will be used in the parent component, and whenever this event occurs, we will call the parent event handler. Okay, that's the simple thing we did here, nothing fancy. Okay, we are not passing any data as of now. We are just doing the notification kind of thing from child to parent. Okay, now let's go to the UI and see if we are able to get any debug logs or not, or console statements or not. Okay. Okay. Let's click on inspect. We have got the name field. Okay, and the moment you write something, it should give you a console. So you wrote this on the child component, but it triggered the console log, written inside the parent components handler. Okay, so that is how you were able to, notify your parent component from your child component. This is a very simple example of how it actually works. Okay, but most of the time what will be your scenario is that you will have to send some data from child as well. It's not like you will just notify the parent. Most of the time it will be, when you are communicating, you will mostly be passing some data as well from child to parent component. So to accommodate that, what we are going to do, we will just you know change little bit. We will change the label and we will say that pass data to parent. Okay, and here in the parent component we will receive that data. Okay, so we will create a uh, let's say a p tag, and we will say that data received by parent, and the value of that will be, let's say, data received. Okay, and let's close this. Now we will have to pass data as well. So currently we were only doing the notification part. We were just firing an event, but we were not passing any data. But if we are supposed to pass any data, then how are we going to do that? Inside the new custom event, uh, we will provide the name, and then this is where we will pass the data detail. And what will be the data? This dot name. Always remember, this is going to be detail, not details. Okay, so detail is basically which will hold the data which you are passing. Okay, so what we are doing here, we are firing a custom event which is passing the name as child event, and what data we are passing, we are passing this dot name. Okay, so we are passing name essentially. Okay, that's what we are passing. But in the child component, sorry, in the parent component, we need to have a property which will hold that data. So I have created data received. Let's create a property with that. And here, what we are going to do, we are going to assign the value to it. Okay, so we get the value. How we are going to assign the value? This dot data received is equals to event dot detail. Okay, that's how we are going to get the data. We passed it as a detail inside an event, and then we will fire that event, and with the help of event.detail we will be able to get that data. But to debug it in a better manner, let us put some console statements as well. And this dot name, And here I will write down, this is the name asked by child. With this, save this on the, this is the name received parent. This will be dot data received. Okay. We will save this. We have already created a tag to hold the value. Let's go back and see if we are able to get it on the UI or not. Okay. Let's refresh this. We have got the updated component. First, we will see if we are directly getting. Yes, we are directly getting it. So even we do not need to console it. But if in case, let's say you type something here, but it does not populate here, then you will see if your child was able to pass or not. And then if your parent was able to receive that or not. Okay, so here everything is fine. So I don't think we need to go through these console statements, but when you actually write it and you might miss something, then you will have to check if your child was able to pass it. And then if yes, then if your parent was able to receive it or not. So it is very, very much possible that you might miss something here, like you might miss to add event here, and then if you will do event.detail, you will not be able to get anything, or you might miss this keyword here. So if you just pass the name, nothing will go, undefined will go from your parent to child, from your child to parent. So always remember, when it comes to debug, you will have to see up to which level you were able to pass it correctly, and then from where it started going wrong for you. Okay, because the root cause of a problem will lie somewhere in between, when the things were right and when the things were wrong. Okay, so this is how you can communicate from your child component to your parent component using the custom events. Okay, now third thing is, and the third way to do this is via the event bubbling. But to understand that, first I need to explain you what is the event propagation. Just give me a second, guys. Someone is at door. All right, sorry guys. So what I was saying is that before understanding how event bubbling works, we need to understand what is event propagation. Okay, and so I will first tell you what is event propagation in LWC, and then we will talk about how bubbling works. So for anything related to Lightning Web Component, Epic SARS is really good. Uh, website. You can go through this. They have detailed explanation plus examples. You can go through and you can revise your things from there as well. Okay. I mean, obviously, if you are going through a zero to hero course in LWC, you need not to refer anything else. Just stick to that. Do not, get in a dilemma of following too many people and too many things. But if you are somebody who is not going through that, then you can go through the event, this Epic Stars blogs as well. Like if you are somebody who likes to read rather than watching videos because they are not very fruitful, and if you like to follow the blogs, then this is a really good site available there. Okay. All right. So this is about parent to child. We will talk about child to parent. Okay. So see here, he has written about event propagation. When an event is fired, that event is propagated to DOM. Okay. So DOM basically means your whole page. Okay. So your HTML page will have different components, and they could be component A, and component B could be inside component A, and then there could be component C, D, E, which will be inside component B, and then there will be component F, which is inside the component A. So component F is the the inner component, whereas component A is the outermost component. Okay. So in a way, if you fire an event from component F, that event will propagate to higher components. Like from F, it will go to E, and then so who is in the higher hierarchy from E is B, and then it will go to A. So this is called the event propagation. Similarly, if you fire an event from A, that event will propagate to the child components as well, like from A to B, B to E, and E to F. That is also called the event propagation. So there are basically two phases. Okay, one is the bubbling phase and the other one is the compose phase. Okay. So bubbling phase basically means whenever you fire an event on the child component, that will bubble up to the parent components and the parents of parent component, like it will go up in the hierarchy. Okay. Whereas compose basically means that if you fire something on the parent component, that will also go to the lower hierarchies components. Like from A, it will go to B, and from B, it may go to C, D, and E, and from E, it may go to F. So that is basically the capture phase of a particular event. Okay. And the other is the bubble phase, where it goes from bottom to top. And in the capture phase, it goes from the top to bottom. Okay. There are basically two phases, bubble phase and capture phase. Capture phase is from top to bottom, and bubble phase is from bottom to top. This is a very important interview question as well, guys. So they will ask you what is event propagation and why do we use it, what is the advantage of using it and all. So whenever, let's say, you have to pass some data from your child to the upper hierarchies, not only to just the immediate parent but also to the upper hierarchy. Like from F component, you want to pass something to E, but not only to E, you also want that to be passed to B and E. So how you will do? From component F, you will fire an event, and you will provide the bubble property so that it will be passed to all the parent component. Now parent, it depends on parent if they want to listen that particular event or not. If they want to listen, they need to put a handler for that. If they don't want to listen, they just need not to put anything there. Okay. And it will be fired from F, and it may be able to reach E, B, and A as well. If you do it normally from child to parent communication with simple event, it will only be fired from F to E. It will never reach B. But if you want that to be fired from F and reach E as well as A and B, then you will use the event propagation for that. Okay. And similar to bubble, we have capture. Let's say you have a component A and you want to pass data to component B and E and F. So if you normally do it with the parent to child, you will pass from A to B, and then you will write some code to pass some data from B to E. Then you will write some code to pass data from E to F. But if you use event propagation, you can provide a compose property, and then it will be passed from A to B and A to E and A to F as well. Okay, so that's how event propagation works, and that's how we pass data from child to parent and parent to child, not only to the immediate child or not only to the immediate parent, but also to the other parents and other childs as well. Okay. And if you read the definition of, I mean, you will go through the definition, you can go through definitions later on and can create your own notes. But what it is saying is that the most commonly used event propagation phase for handling event is event bubbling. So most of the time, see, when we have to pass some data from parent to child, most of the time we will not get scenarios where we have to pass to every child available on the hierarchy. Most of the time we need to pass something from child which may go to all the parents. So that is where we use this functionality a lot. I mean, functionality is available for us to use even the event bubbling and event capture as well, but most of the time we end up using the event bubbling rather than the event capture. That's what he's trying to say, is that the most commonly used event propagation phase is event bubbling. In this case, the event is triggered at the child level and propagates up to the DOM. So whatever, up component it will get, it will propagates to there. And if they want to, want that particular event and want to perform something on the happening of that event, they will have to write some handler for it. Okay, how do we write that handler? We will see. But first, we will need to understand what it is and how it works. Okay. So from the picture itself, it is very clear how it works. But if in case you face any problem or if you have any difficulty in understanding it, you feel free to explore other resources as well. Like there are a couple of uh, uh, other sources as well available, which will be able to tell you all those things. Okay. Now we will see the practical example of it. Okay. I'm going to create another component for this, not this one. So let me first remove this from the page. Save this. Let's go back to our playground. Let's create a new component. Let me call it event. Yeah. And similar to this, we will create another component, which will be event bubbling child. Deploy this. All right, so what we need to do is we need to pass, let's say, an input variable. So just for the better structure. Okay, so what we are going to do, we will create one child component, and in that child component we will have an input field, okay, which will pass some data, okay, and then we will receive that data in the parent component. Okay, that's a very simple use case we are going to do. So let's create a lightning input field. Let's change something. Let's add some handler. Change. This will get an event to event. All right. So far so good. Nothing fancy we did. Now we need to create a custom event. Okay, and then we will fire it. Let's name it whatever. Change event. Custom event. Okay, and be very specific to spelling. If you write C in a smaller letter, you will get errors, or your component may not behave properly. JavaScript is very specific about the case sensitivity. Okay, so be very specific. In JavaScript, name in smaller and name in capital are two different things. This is not Apex. So be very specific and check each and every alphabet of your code. If something is not going wrong, check each and every alphabet of your code if it is JavaScript, because JavaScript is not Apex. All right. So how we gonna do here? What we do? We create. We give some custom names. So like I can say this is my custom event, and how we pass data by doing this dot name, and after that, we will have to provide a parameter which will say bubbles. This is a property, okay, which is a Boolean property. You can provide true or false to it. So if you provide true, that means this event will bubble up to the page, which means that it will travel from this child component to whatever parents available in this particular page. Okay, and whosoever writes a handler to receive this event will be able to get the notification, will be able to get this data if they want to get. Okay, so this is not limited to just the immediate parent, but if there is any other parent as well, they will also be able to get the notification as well as the data sent by this particular event. Okay, that's how we do this. And then we will have to dispatch it. Change event. Okay. Let me save this. Now our parent need to add this particular component. Okay, so we will just add it C dot event. Okay, that's it. We did not to add any handler here because this time we are using the event propagation. Okay, so very simple as it is. Now just create a p tag to receive the value. So name received by parent is equals to, let's say, create a variable received name. And let's close the p tag. In the JavaScript, I will have to create a property with same name. So I will create a property received name. Okay, and here I need to provide a handler, or I need to tell the page that I want to receive this particular child event. So here in the parent components JavaScript file, I do need to do something in order to tell the page that I want to receive this event. Okay, now we are not doing it normally. How we do it, that we create we use this name, my custom event, and create an on handler for that, and then based on that we used to get something normally. But as we are using the event propagation, we need not to do anything on the JavaScript on the HTML side of it. What we can do inside the constructor, we have to use the super keyword first. Inside the constructor, I can tell this dot, and how we do that, just focus on this dot template dot add event listeners. Add event listener, and inside that we will tell which event I want to listen. I want to listen this event. Okay. And what I want to do when this event happens, I want to call this method. So I will write a method handle custom event this. And so what I'm saying is that on the constructor, what we are saying is that on the constructor, we will add an event listener. Okay. On which event? On this event will happen on child. So whenever this event happen on a child, I want to add an event listener. What event listener do? They perform something. What I want to perform? I want to perform whatever written inside this. Okay. And we are binding this with this particular, so that this handle custom event will be able to get the data passed by your custom event. Okay. So we have to write code for this as well. We will go outside the constructor, and here it will get the event, and here I can say that this dot received name is equals to event dot detail. Let me save this. Let me just cross verify if I have done something wrong or something. Is equals to true. All right, let's see on the UI if it is working or not. Okay, if not, then we will debug this. Let me add this on page. What is the name of our page? Event public. Nothing wrong in the page rendering. Let's see if it is able to pass the data as well. Yep, I'm able to pass the data from my child component to my parent component with the help of event bubbling. So this is working perfectly fine. Now exercise for you guys will be the same way I have used the event bubbling. You have to use the other thing. Okay, event composition. Okay, the second one. And I also want you to add another parent on top of this parent and see if you are able to pass this data to that parent as well. Okay, so that is an exercise for you guys to do, and let me know if you are able to do that or not. Okay, so far so good. Any doubt in this, guys?
हेलो सर, दिस इज अतुल।
Yes, hi Atul, tell me.
सर, एक क्वेश्चन पूछा था मुझसे इंटरव्यू में कि अगर आप अपर हायरार्की की ओर जाते हो, अगर बबलिंग के थ्रू, तो क्या आप ये कस्टम इवेंट से कर सकते हो? ये पॉसिबल है कि कस्टम इवेंट से? अगर ए बी का पेरेंट है और बी सी का पेरेंट है, तो ये उससे कस्टम इवेंट से भी पॉसिबल है क्या? ये क्वेश्चन पूछा था,
ए
इसका
बी
आंसर
का
मुझे नहीं
पेरेंट
पता।
है और बी सी का पेरेंट
बी
है, और
सी का
आप
पेरेंट है।
कस्टम मतलब बबलिंग यूज नहीं कर सकते।
हाँ।
तो देखो क्या होता है, सी से आप डेटा पास करोगे बी को, ठीक है,
ओके।
और बी को जब डेटा मिल जाएगा तो आप बी से वही डेटा पास करोगे ए को, सी से डेटा पास करोगे बी को थ्रू चाइल्ड टू पेरेंट कम्युनिकेशन, ओके।
ओके सर।
देन वही डेटा आप बी से ए को पास करोगे थ्रू अगेन चाइल्ड टू पेरेंट कम्युनिकेशन, ठीक है। तो आपको ज्यादा कोड लिखना पड़ेगा, ओके, और आपका पेज उतना रोबस्ट नहीं होगा। अगर आप इवेंट बबलिंग यूज कर सकते हो तो डायरेक्टली आप सी से डेटा पास करोगे, और बी हो ए हो और कितने भी पेरेंट हो सबको मिल सकता है। बट अगर आपको वो यही नहीं यूज कर सकते हो तो फिर आपको मैनुअली बी से सी में, सी से बी में, देन बी से ए में, फिर अगर ए का कोई और पेरेंट है तो उसको फिर वन बाय वन भेजना पड़ेगा। मतलब वो कोड का लॉजिक सी से बी में भेजने के लिए सी में लिखना पड़ेगा, बी में लिखना पड़ेगा, देन बी से ए में भेजने के लिए फिर से बी में लिखना पड़ेगा। तो वो अपने लिए ओवरहेड हो जाएगा। और ये जो अप्रोच है ये स्केलेबल नहीं है, क्योंकि लेट से मान लो और भी कई सारे पेरेंट ऐड हो जाते हैं तो हम लोग को मैनुअली ये सारी चीजें ऐड करती रहनी है। बट अगर हम इवेंट बबलिंग यूज कर रहे हैं तो कितने भी पेरेंट ऐड होते जाएं, बस हमें उसमें इवेंट हैंडलर ऐड करना है, अपने चाइल्ड कंपोनेंट में कुछ भी चेंज करने की जरूरत नहीं पड़ेगी, ठीक है। बट अगर हम मैनुअली
ओके सर।
भेजते हैं तो हमें पेरेंट और चाइल्ड दोनों चेंज करने पड़ते हैं, दोनों में एक्स्ट्रा कोड लिखना पड़ता है। प्लस अगर कोई नया पेरेंट आता है तो फिर हमें फिर से ऐड करना पड़ेगा वो सारी चीजें, ठीक है। तो
हाँ।
ये अप्रोच, दोनों अप्रोचेस के प्रोज एंड कॉन्स बता देना। पॉसिबल तो देखो कुछ भी है पॉसिबल, तो आप पेरेंट टू चाइल्ड कम्युनिकेशन आपको करना है, लेट से बी जो चाइल्ड है और ए पेरेंट है, ठीक है। इससे हम सिंपली बी से ए डेटा भेज सकते हैं, ठीक है,
ठीक है।
नॉर्मली से भेजते हैं। बट अगर आप सोचो कि मैं लाइटनिंग मैसेज चैनल यूज करूंगा, लाइटनिंग मैसेज सर्विसेज यूज करके करूंगा, तो करने को तो कर सकते हो। देखो कान को सीधा भी पकड़ा जा सकता है और घुमा के भी पकड़ा जा सकता है, बट आराम किस में रहेगी हमें वो देखना होता है, कौन सा सही रहेगा सिस्टम के लिए, ठीक है।
यस सर।
ये सारी चीजें देखी जाती हैं,
ओके, थैंक यू सर।
ओके। एंड देखो लाइटनिंग
तो सर
नेविगेशन, हाँ हाँ, गो
सर
एहेड।
वो बाइंड तो कोड में बाइंड ब्रैकेट में पैरामीटर
हाँ
पास किया दिस, वो समझ में नहीं आया। कोड कोड
देखो समझ गया। देखो क्या हो रहा है, हम क्या बोल रहे हैं कि जब भी ये कस्टम इवेंट हो तो हमने क्या करना है, हमने एक इवेंट ऐड करना है। ऐड इवेंट लिसनर क्या करता है, किसी इवेंट को लिसन करता है, किसी इवेंट को सुनता है, और उसके सुनने पे जब भी उसको कुछ रिस्पॉन्स आता है सुनने में, तो वो एक एक्शन परफॉर्म करता है, ठीक है। तो हम यहाँ पे क्या बोल रहे हैं, जब भी ये इवेंट हो, एग्जीक्यूट हो, तो हमने क्या करना है, हमने हैंडल कस्टम इवेंट को फायर कर देना है। हैंडल कस्टम इवेंट क्या है, एक फंक्शन है, ठीक है। ये फंक्शन एक इवेंट मतलब इवेंट पे ट्रिगर हो रहा है, तो इसको इवेंट का डेटा चाहिए, ठीक है। जो भी इवेंट यहाँ पे हो रहा है, चेंज इवेंट, ये एक डेटा पास कर रहा है, ठीक है, ठीक है। तो हम क्या बोल रहे हैं कि जब भी ये इवेंट हो तो हमने इस पर्टिकुलर मेथड को कॉल कर देना है और इसको इवेंट का डेटा भेज देना है। ये जो बाइंड डॉट दिस है उससे हम क्या कर रहे हैं कि ये जो दिस को पास कर रहे हैं वो एक तरह से आपको करंट इंस्टेंस ऑफ इवेंट है, ठीक है। माई कस्टम इवेंट की करंट इंस्टेंस मिल रही है आपको। इसी इवेंट की वजह से आपको यहाँ पे डेटा आप इसको असाइन कर पा रहे हो रिसीव्ड नेम को। अदरवाइज अगर आप ये नहीं करोगे ना तो ये ब्लैंक आएगा, यहाँ पे कुछ आएगा ही नहीं, ठीक है। तो आपको ये डेटा मिलेगा यहाँ पे, आप दिस के थ्रू आप क्या कर रहे हो, इस पर्टिकुलर कस्टम इवेंट की करंट इंस्टेंस को पास कर रहे हो यहाँ पे, ठीक है।
यस
अगर आप इसे ब्लैंक करके भेजोगे, आप अपने खुद के डेवलपर कंसोल में करना, इसे एक बार इस लाइन को हटा देना, ठीक है,
यस।
और डायरेक्टली इस मेथड को पास करके देखना, और देखना यहाँ पे कुछ आ रहा है या नहीं, ठीक है। तो अपने आप आपकी डाउट क्लियर हो जाएंगे, ठीक है।
ठीक है सर।
अच्छा क्वेश्चन है ये, मतलब ऐसे क्वेश्चन आते हैं, पूछे जाते हैं कि भाई ये क्या हुआ वो क्या हुआ। तो नेविगेशन सर्विसेज पे बात करते हैं। नेविगेशन सर्विसेज क्या होती है,
One,
नेविगेट, यस,
sorry to
गो अहेड गो अहेड।
yeah, like I have a
I will
question.
take a
Like,
pause of 10 minutes. We will go through questions first and then we will talk about other topic. Okay?
oh yeah,
Please.
sure. Okay.
No, Santosh, you should ask. I am saying you should ask.
Okay.
We will cover
Yeah,
topic.
yeah, okay.
Uh-huh.
Sure. Okay. Mohit, like in order to communicate between siblings, like we should pass the data from child to parent, again from parent to the
Yes,
another child.
yes. That's the
This is the way, or uh,
see, that is the better way. If you, let's say we have three components, A, B, and C. And A is the parent, and B
yes,
is child, and C is also child of A.
yeah,
Now B and C are siblings, and they are not directly related to each other. Okay. So if we have to pass some data from B to C, we will pass that data from B to A, and then we will pass that data from A to C. That is a approach we normally take to pass data between siblings. Okay. And that is not a bad approach. That is actually a good approach, because see, data is very critical. Okay. So it's not like you will bubble up data and that data can be received by any component. Okay. Data is very critical. It's not like we use bubble normally in every lightning web component. Okay. So we have to make sure that data is not crossing the boundaries which data is not supposed to cross. Okay, if data need to be shared between A, B, and C, then it should only be shared between A, B, and C. It should not cross that boundary, or it should not provide a leak in your system. Because when you create a lightning web component, that is something on the UI. So not only your end users will use it, but also there are a lot of scammers, hackers, and the Trojan horses available who will try to get the hand of your data. Okay, try to leak your data. So data becomes really critical when you write a scalable solutions, and your data should never cross the boundaries which it is not supposed to cross. Okay, so always use an approach where your data is secure. Okay, now whenever they say that bubble up to the parent and bubble up to all the childs, that's not we normally do in pages. Okay, because it's not about what you can do. And I mean, in an interview it may be about if you can do that or not. But sometimes when we work in an organization, we need to think more about if we should do that or not. Okay, if that is going to be good for us, and if that is going to be a good thing for us in future. So scalability is something which we think a lot when we actually build for a company. But yes, obviously in an interview they kind of ask any question. Like yesterday somebody pinged me and she shared that she got a question like, can we call a batch from flow? So what will be the practical scenario where an interviewer need to call a batch from a flow? Because batch is a separate use case. I don't know why these interviewers kind of mix these things in an interview. These are non-practical things. These are the things which will never happen in a real project, like you will be calling a batch from your flow. And if it is about,
they might be confuse the
yeah,
candidate
they, they,
because of
they
that
they
name.
basically try to confuse things, but that is also a bad thing. Because see, if you
Yeah.
are not doing something in your real projects, like calling batches from your flow, then why are you asking these kind of questions? Like
Yeah.
you need to think about the candidate as well. Like from what are you trying to build? Like what kind of candidate you are trying to find? Like these are the scenarios we never do in real scenarios. So I prefer to ask questions which are more practical in terms of they will see those things in real interviews, rather than calling the nonsense question like calling batches from flow and all those things. But yes, obviously in an interview they can ask anything, but I want my students to tell answer not only from the interview point of view, but also from the practical point of view, how feasible it is to do, and how I mean, whenever you get any kind of dumb question like this, uh, I mean, obviously answer this. Like if they ask you, like, can you call a batch from your flow? So you will answer this. You can call an invocable method from your flow, and then that invocable method might be calling batches or doing whatever it want to. Just like the same way we call the future method from the flow. Okay. But you also need to ask him, do you, I mean, do we do that? I mean, do you have any use case where we call batches from your flow in your real project or something? He will immediately get offended, and he will immediately back off, because we never call batches from.
Yeah.
There will never be a
Okay.
use where we'll call batches from a flow. Maybe a very, very long use case could be like we have a screen flow from where we are scheduling a batch, and from the screen we are providing a timer to that batch and all those things, but that also is a very long shot to take. Okay, normally we never do that. Okay, we write a batch, we schedule it, and then that's the job done. We write batch only when we have to deal with the bulk data. So that's not something we do just for fun. Batch is a kind of last resort when we have so much data that we cannot process it otherwise, then only we go for batches. So we never think about mixing batches with flows or batches with any other for an instance. So we never call a queueable from future just to make fun of the system, because they have separate use cases. Okay, they have their own use cases. They are not supposed to be mixed together unless it is absolutely required, and I do not see any use case where it is absolutely required. Okay, like future method, I understand it is absolutely required if you are getting mixed DML error. I understand batch epics, it is absolutely required when we have to deal with the bulk data. I absolutely understand when to use schedulable when we have to schedule something. But I never get the use cases where we have to mix and match these different options available for doing different things. Okay, because we most of the time in a real project use them separately. But yes, interview is an interview, so they can ask any kind of questions, but be an informed developer. And sometimes for your own curiosity, if somebody is asking these kind of questions, you can ask a cross question like, is it, I mean, are you doing this thing normally in your project? I mean, how often do we get a requirement where we have to call a batch from a flow? He will immediately back off, trust me. Okay.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, thank you. Thank you very
But a
much.
weird thing happens in an interview, and just for the sake of interview, they ask those kind of questions. But this culture need to be changed. Like if you are asking these kind of dumb questions in an interview, what expectation you are setting in, the candidate's mind, that are they doing these kind of dumb things in their org, like calling batches from flows and all those things. So I don't know. When I get a sensible interviewer, they never ask these kind of questions. They ask logical questions, and then those questions can be very logical, can be deep. But whenever I see an interviewer which asks these questions, like, "Can you call this from this? Call this from that?" Those questions are sort of, and immediately I, realize that what kind of interviewer it is, and then I kind of give answers based on that. Sometimes, I mean, it is not a good idea to fight with the interviewer. You should never do that. I have done that couple of times and always it backfired. Even when my interview went really good, and if I had an argument with the interviewer, it always end up in a bad note. So you should never have argument with your interviewer. Be in a very polite manner, be very composed. Okay, even if you have disagreement with the interviewer, you should always be open to listen to his point of view as well. Okay, sometimes we get really aggressive in an interview. Like if we are, let's say, expert on something, we know something in and outs, and then when answering the question of that topic, we kind of become aggressive sometimes. We should never do that in an interview. We should always be very polite in terms of how we are answering the question, and overall make sure that the overall mood of that interview is light. I mean, it should never be a heated argument between you and an interviewer. If, let's say, he's saying that no, you are wrong and something, it's not like you should accept you are wrong or something, but you can say that, okay, I will obviously try to explore more on this. It seems like I might not have explored this part of it, and that is why I might not be able to fill the gap of what you think and what I'm thinking, but I will definitely try to explore more on this. So be always positive about receiving the feedbacks as well in an interview, because it is very important sometimes, and listening carefully is a very underrated skill. Most of the time when we listen a question and we know the answer, we out of the excitement we try to answer it in rush, without even letting interviewer finish their point of view, or without them letting finish their questions. We kind of rush to answers. But always listen the question properly, take a couple of second pause, 2-3 second pause, and then start answering your question in a framed manner. Think about how you should answer the question before answering it. So take a 2-3 seconds pause, 4 second pause, and then start answering your question in a defined manner. Always take a cup of coffee or a water or something in front of you. So take that pauses and then frame your answers positively in those 4-5 seconds and then start answering. Don't start any answer in rush, because otherwise you will start fumbling if you start answering something in rush and start fumbling, and that will obviously be a negative thing in your interview. So see, we get anxiety whenever we face interviews. We get anxiety, and that anxiety is very common, very normal, and it happens with everybody. So you need to understand that this is not something which is only happening with you. Anxiety is very common, and it happens with every, no matter how many years of experience you may gain. Whenever you start giving interviews, couple of initial interviews, 4 or 5 interviews, you will feel more anxiety. Then if you keep on giving interviews, by the next interview you will feel less anxiety, because you will have more confidence on your skills. Because after 4 or 5 interviews you will understand that these are the questions, these are the things which I was wrong, which I was right, and then you will work on your skill set. And after 4 or 5 interviews you will feel that you have more confidence and less anxiety. The more confidence you will keep on getting from your interviews, the less anxiety you will start receiving on your next interview. So it is all game of confidence and your skill set. Be confident on your skill set, be ready to work really hard on your skill set, and then don't feel anxious about your interview. Feel that you have prepared enough for that. If you're not prepared enough, you have to take a pause and prepare for it. But once you have prepared, once you feel that you are prepared, then show confidence on yourself. It is you who is going to back yourself up. Nobody else is going to do that. So sometimes you need to feel confident on your skill set. You have prepared well, you have worked really hard for that job interview, and on the day of interview you should absolutely feel the most confident person, because you have worked really hard for that. And keep backing yourself with your hard work. So don't feel anxious about you will not be able to answer. Be focused about what you will be able to explain him if you get an opportunity to explain something. So focus on your skill set, focus on your confidence rather than anxiety. Anxiety will always be there. It's not something which is new, and it is not something which is happening only with you. It happens with everybody. I have seen architects giving an interview and they were not able to utter a single word because of the anxiety. So don't take this in such manner that it will hamper you in negatively. Take it in a positive manner. Some little bit pressure is not bad, in my opinion. Little bit pressure should always be there on person so that they can do better. So don't take it in a negative manner. Just take it positively. You have to perform well, and you have studied for that. So have confidence in you, especially on your interview day. You should absolutely have full faith in yourself that you can do. You can absolutely do this. You should have that kind of attitude in you on your interview day. Okay.
Yeah,
Otherwise,
I,
anxiety
Yeah,
will take
Mohit.
over.
yeah,
Yeah, Mohit.
hello.
Yes, you.
Adding to that, Mohit, like I have read somewhere uh, like your intro result is based on first, first 1 or 2 minutes. Like, is it true?
Not 1 or 2 minutes, but yes, yeah, at least I would say around 5 minutes. So the way you start your interview, the way you give your explanation, the way you give your introduction, plays a very vital role. So even when I take interviews, if candidate is giving good introduction, that sets the tone of that interview. Okay. And if his introduction is good, and then he backs his interview with the knowledge as well, followed by his interview, then obviously, but within first 5 minutes we kind of make an assumption about candidate, if it is a good candidate or not. Okay, so the introduction part should always be excellent, and that is what I tell in every mock sessions as well, is that you need to work on your introduction part, because from the introduction part, I should, as an interviewer, I should get an idea about what I need to ask from this candidate. Okay, nobody goes through your resume, to be very frank. They will just take a quick glance, through it, and then it is your introduction which will tell them that on which topics you have worked on, what are the things you know, what are the things you are interested in, what are the areas you like in Salesforce. If you don't have much to add on your, like if you are a fresher, you don't have much to add on your introduction, then you can talk about what are the things you like in Salesforce, what are the areas which are your best areas, what are the areas where you want to work on. Like when I was fresher, people, in my introduction, I used to say that in when I talk about the Salesforce process automation is something which I always feel excited about, and whenever I get a requirement, I try to analyze it whether I'm going to do it with the workflow or a process builder or something. So that kind of sets a tone that I am expecting questions from the process automation. You can ask questions from workflow rule or process builder or flow or triggers. So this basically sets the tone, but it's okay if your first 5 minutes were wrong. It's obviously, if it is not in your control, everything is not in your control. So let's say if your first 5 minutes went wrong, that doesn't mean your whole interview is going to be bad. It's okay. You can make a comeback anytime in your interview by your skill set. So the kind of question he's asking and the kind of answer you are getting will determine the ultimate output. But yes, if you set that interview tone in a positive manner in first 5 minutes, that will be a huge advantage for you, because most of the interviewer will make their decision in first 5-10 minutes, and then rest 20 minutes they will just make sure that whether their decision making was right or wrong. So let's say if candidate gave good introduction and was able to answer initial couple of questions perfectly, then I will think that this is a good candidate. Then I will just try to make sure that whatever I'm thinking in my mind about this candidate is right or wrong. Okay, if I have a positive outlook towards you, then I will ask the question and will try to assert it like, okay, that is fine, that is fine. Okay, even if he doesn't know something, I will take it positively, like, okay, he already know a couple of things and he was not able to tell these things. It's okay, he will be able to learn. But if I have a negative outlook towards you, then on the same question, I will think that, okay, he doesn't know even this is the very important thing, and he doesn't know even the batch epics. That's a negative thing. This is not a good candidate. So it, or sometimes it depends on the outlook as well, how as an interviewer I'm thinking about you, and how as an interviewer I'm taking you as a candidate. So in first 5 minutes, try to take those first 5 minutes are your best shot, because you will get 5 minutes in throughout your interview. You can talk 5 minutes on your own, and you can talk about all the things you have worked on, all the things which excites you in Salesforce. Mostly keep it with the Salesforce. It's only, don't try to tell much about your college or something, because they are not interested at all. If you are a fresher and you are talking about your uh, if you do not have much to talk about that, then you can talk about your final year project and the things you have used to build that project. But they are not interested at all in your siblings or in your final year college and all those things. They are not much interested. So they are interested in a technology. Give them the good dish, cooked by your technology knowledge. Okay.
Hello.
Yes. Yes, please.
या या भैया, कल मेरा एक इंटरव्यू था, मतलब उसमें क्या था, एक स्टार्टअप था और इंटरव्यू काफी एग्रेसिव था। एग्रेसिव इन द सेंस कि मतलब कोई वे ऑफ टॉकिंग सही से नहीं था, ये सारी चीजें थी। एंड ऐसा इंटरव्यू पहला फेस किया मैंने, एंड वो मतलब इंटरव्यू का जताने का मतलब ये था कि तुम्हें कुछ नहीं आता। तो लास्ट टाइम पे वो तो एक तरीका होता है ना, वे ऑफ टॉकिंग एट द टाइम ऑफ इंटरव्यू, वो बिल्कुल भी नहीं था। मैंने मतलब पेशेंस किया, एक टाइम के बाद 2-3 क्वेश्चनों के बाद रुका मैंने कुछ नहीं बोला, मतलब ठीक है। फिर लास्ट में आके जब आके उसने कुछ ज्यादा ही बोला, तो मैंने उसको बोला कि दैट यू हाउ मच ईयर ऑफ एक्सपीरियंस डू यू हैव, जस्ट टेल मी। उसको इंग्लिश बोलने नहीं आ रही थी सही से, ठीक है, तो वो हंसने लगा। देन आफ्टर मैंने पूछा कि आपको सेल्सफोर्स में सब कुछ आता है क्या? दैट इवन 45 मिनट का इंटरव्यू था एंड ही टेक ऑलरेडी लाइक 5 मिनट उसने मेरा इंटरव्यू ही नहीं लिया होगा। एंड ही सेड दैट we will not consider with you, or like we are a startup and we need a very technical guy. And okay, ठीक है, it's fine. If you need a technical guy, then it's fine. But you have like you have already scheduled 45-minute interview. Then how can you like judge anyone in a 5 minute? Just tell me this thing first. Okay. First of all, if you don't want to take my interview, that's fine. But the way of talking, that is not the correct. If I am wrong, if I don't know the answer, that's fine. Because I have 1.5 year experience. I haven't that thing which I have done in my last company. So if you consider like feel it that I know integration and all that stuff, but in that last company I haven't done that work. So ऐसे करके मैंने उसको, बट वो जो उसका वे ऑफ टॉकिंग था ना, तो फिर मैंने उसको काफी सुनाया फिर उसको अच्छी तरीके से। तो ऐसे लोगों को क्या करना चाहिए, मतलब स्टार्टअप था, ज्यादा से ज्यादा 5 एम्प्लॉयज होंगे उसमें, मैं नाम नहीं लेना चाहता उसका, बट ऐसे स्टार्टअप को क्या करें हम?
ठीक है, देखो ऐसे इंटरव्यूअर्स कभी कभी मिलते हैं जो मतलब बहुत ही रूड होते हैं, जिनमें कोई भी वे ऑफ टॉकिंग होता ही नहीं है। दे आर, आई मीन, ऐसे इंटरव्यूअर्स मतलब नाम खराब करते हैं और कुछ नहीं। देखो उनको क्या होता है, स्टार्टअप में क्या होता है ना कि दिन रात काम वाला कल्चर रहता है, ठीक है। तो वो ये एक्सपेक्ट करता है कि मतलब बंदा उनको फ्री में मिल जाए, ठीक है, और उसको आता सब कुछ हो, ठीक है। बट
हाँ।
होता नहीं है, ठीक है। अगर आपको ऐसा बंदा चाहिए जिसको सब कुछ आता हो, ठीक है, तो आपको वैसा पे भी करना पड़ेगा। आपको मिलेंगे बंदे, ऐसा नहीं कि नहीं मिलेंगे। फिर आप गलत जगह ढूंढ रहे हो, राइट। फिर आप स्किल सेट ही गलत देख रहे हो। अगर आप एक 1.5 साल वाले बंदे से ये एक्सपेक्ट कर रहे हो कि वो इंटीग्रेशन में एक्सपर्ट हो, तो आपकी एक्सपेक्टेशन ही गलत है, और आप पूरे जीवन फ्रस्ट्रेट ही रहोगे, क्योंकि आप देख ही गलत जगह रहे हो, तो आपको दिखेगा क्या, ठीक है। तो ऐसे इंटरव्यूअर मिलेंगे, ये भी सबसे ज्यादा खराब इंटरव्यूअर ही सिखाता है अपने को, ठीक है। तो जब भी मिलता है तो हमको अपना पेशेंस नहीं खोना है, हमको अपना काम, ठीक है, उसने रिजेक्ट करना है वो करे, उससे कोई मतलब नहीं है। हमें एज अ कैंडिडेट अपना पेशेंस नहीं खोना है। वो खराब कर रहा है, करने दो, अपने को उसको उसको फीडबैक देने की जरूरत ही नहीं है, ठीक है। वो खराब कर रहा है, उसका वो जाने, ठीक है। एज अ कैंडिडेट हमें अपना पेशेंस नहीं खोना है। हम जिस क्वेश्चन को जितनी कामली आंसर करते हैं हम वही करेंगे। अगर हमें लेट्स से इंटीग्रेशन का कुछ नहीं आता है, तो हम उसको यही बोलेंगे कि सॉरी सर, बट आई डिड नॉट गेट इनफ अपॉर्चुनिटी टू एक्सप्लोर इंटीग्रेशन ऑन माई करंट कंपनी।
मैंने उसको यही बोला, ऐसे ही करके बोला, चेक
आपने
किया
जैसे
आपने। हाँ
एक बार मैं HCL में इंटरव्यू दे रहा था, ठीक है। तो एच
हाँ।
शुरू शुरू की बात है, मतलब 2 साल का एक्सपीरियंस रहा होगा, तो HCL में इंटरव्यू दे रहा था। तो मेरा जैसे टोन रहता है, मैं मतलब इंट्रोडक्शन में ही हमेशा से मेरे सीनियर ने यही सिखाया है कि इंट्रोडक्शन अपना अच्छा रखना। इंट्रोडक्शन में अपने सारे टॉपिक्स अच्छे से एक्सप्लोर करके उसको बता देना, तो फिर वो क्वेश्चंस उसी से निकल के आते हैं। क्योंकि यार इंटरव्यूअर जो होते हैं वो ऐसे खाली तो बैठे नहीं होते कि हाँ मुझे मुझे ना अभी योगेश का इंटरव्यू लेना है, जरा योगेश का रिज्यूमे देखता हूँ, इसने जो जो चीजें करी है, अच्छा इसने रिपोर्ट में काम किया है, अच्छा मैं रिपोर्ट का सबसे टफ क्वेश्चन निकाल के इससे पूछूंगा। ऐसा नहीं होता। मोस्ट ऑफ द टाइम ये होता है कि हमें आता है कि ठीक है ये इंटरव्यू लेना है, अब मुझे 1 हफ्ते पहले पता चल गया, ये 2 दिन पहले पता चल गया, ठीक है, मेरा 11 से 12 एक इंटरव्यू मुझे लेना है, बस मुझे इतना पता होगा, मुझे किसका लेना है, कैसा लेना है, वो मैं 11 बजे ही देखूंगा, ठीक है। तो मोस्ट ऑफ द टाइम जो इंटरव्यूअर होते हैं वो डेवलपर ही होते हैं जो टेक्निकल राउंड लेते हैं, ठीक है। तो वो पहले से प्रिपेयर होके नहीं आते हैं, तो हम लोग रेज्यूमे देखते हैं और जैसा वो बताता है वैसे उससे क्वेश्चन। देखो फोकस ये रहता है पहले तो जो वो बता रहा है कि उसको आता है वो देखें कि वो उसको एक्चुअल में आता है या नहीं। देन उसके बाद हम देखें कि हमें चाहिए क्या इससे। जैसे जैसे हमें एक डेवलपर हायर करना है LWC लिखवाने के लिए, ठीक है, तो पहले हम देखेंगे कि उसने क्या क्या आता है जो वो बता पा रहा है। देन हम देखेंगे हमें क्या क्या चाहिए जो हमें इस कैंडिडेट में चाहिए ही चाहिए, मतलब मस्ट टू होना चाहिए, नहीं तो हमें इसे हायर नहीं करना है। देन हम वो वाली चीजें देखते हैं। उसके बाद अगर वो दोनों चीजें वो बता पाता है, देन हम देखते हैं कि भाई ये कैंडिडेट अच्छा है, ये सब कुछ बता पा रहा है, अब ये देख लेते हैं कि इसको क्या क्या और आता है, ठीक है। तो हम फिर देखते हैं कि अगर ये अच्छा कैंडिडेट है तो ये कितना अच्छा कैंडिडेट है, क्योंकि कभी कभी क्या होता है कि हमें बहुत अच्छे कैंडिडेट मिल जाते हैं, ठीक है। तो हमें उनमें ये भी देखना होता है कि हम ऐसा ना हो कि हम उससे कुछ पूछे ही ना उसके उसके स्ट्रॉन्ग जोन का, उसको एक अच्छा चांस मिलना चाहिए उसको अपनी स्किल सेट दिखाने का, ठीक है। तो सबसे पहले जो उसको आता है वो पूछा जाता है, देन उसके बाद हमको जो चाहिए वो पूछा जाता है। देन उसके बाद अगर कुछ बचता है और वो स्टिल बता पाता है, जैसे कि लेट्स से उसने FSL में भी काम किया है, लेट्स से उसने CPQ में भी काम किया है, या लेट्स से उसने मार्केटिंग क्लाउड में भी काम किया है, तो ये सारी एडेड चीजें होती हैं। तो जब हम लोग फीडबैक लिख के देते हैं तो हम लोग बताते हैं कि candidate is strong in LWC or candidate is strong in Apex and batches, was able to answer everything in the fundamentals of Apex, little bit weak in admin, was not able to answer couple of tricky admin questions, but admin के क्वेश्चन चलते हैं क्योंकि पता होता है ये एक्सप्लोर कर लेगा बंदा, ठीक है। तो ऐसे करके हम लोग जो फीडबैक देते हैं, तो ये जो एक्स्ट्रा करिकुलर चीजें होती है ना कि किसी ने FSL में काम किया है, या किसी ने हेल्थ क्लाउड में काम किया है, या किसी ने फाइनेंशियल सर्विस में क्लाउड में काम किया है, तो ये सारी चीजें ऐसी होती है। अब जैसे कोई बंदा आ गया मुझे इंटरव्यू देने के लिए और उसने बोला कि मैंने फाइनेंशियल सर्विस क्लाउड में काम किया हुआ है, ठीक है। अब मुझे फाइनेंशियल सर्विस क्लाउड आता ही नहीं है, तो मैं उसके फीडबैक में क्या लिखूंगा कि इसको फाइनेंशियल सर्विस क्लाउड आता है, क्योंकि मैंने उसकी नॉलेज वेरीफाई नहीं की, बट मुझे इसने ये बोला है कि मुझे फाइनेंशियल सर्विस क्लाउड आता है, बट मुझे खुद नहीं आता था। तो मैं एक दो क्वेश्चन में भी देखूंगा या पूछूंगा डेटा मॉडल से रिलेटेड और बोलूंगा कि इसको ये आता है। तो ये सारी चीजें एडेड एडवांटेज होती है। हेल्थ क्लाउड हो गया, फाइनेंशियल सर्विस क्लाउड हो गया, एजुकेशन क्लाउड हो गया, नॉन प्रॉफिट क्लाउड हो गया, इनमें अगर आपको बेसिक इन्फॉर्मेशन भी है ना, तो भी मतलब ये आपको बहुत ज्यादा एडवांटेज देती है बाकी अदर चीजों से। और इंटरव्यू हमेशा ऐसे ही होता है, पहले वो पूछा जाता है जो कैंडिडेट को आता है, जिसको वो खुद से बता रहा है कि मुझे आता है, फिर वो पूछा जाता है तो हमें चाहिए उसको, ठीक है। तो ऐसे जो इंटरव्यूअर मिलते हैं ना, ये बहुत सिखाते हैं। जब मैंने एचसीएल में दिया था इंटरव्यू, तो मैं तो अपने उसी जोन में था कि हाँ भाई, अपनी सारी चीजें इंट्रोडक्शन में बता देनी है एक साथ में। बट ये था कि तब मैं फ्रेशर था, नया नया था, मतलब फ्रेशर तो नहीं बट हाँ नया नया था, इंटरव्यू कभी दिया नहीं था मेरे, मतलब मैंने सिर्फ एक इंटरव्यू दिया था, उससे मेरी पहली जॉब लग गई थी, ठीक है। और उसके बाद 2 साल तक कोई इंटरव्यू दिया नहीं था, तो एक तरह से वो पहला इंटरव्यू था। तो जैसा जैसा सिखाया मेरे, मैं तो पूरा जा करके इंट्रोडक्शन में पूरी उल्टी कर दी मैंने, एकदम अच्छे से सब कुछ बता दिया, ठीक है। तो वो समझ गया कि ये ना मेरे मुंह में क्वेश्चन डाल रहा है, ठीक है। तो उसने उसने ना एक क्वेश्चन नहीं पूछा उससे, जो जो भी मैंने टॉपिक बोले, जैसे मैंने सर्विस क्लाउड में काम किया हुआ था उस टाइम पे, तो जो जो भी मैंने टॉपिक बोले कि मैंने ईमेल टू केस में किया है, मैंने वेब टू केस में किया है, मैंने ओमनी चैनल किया है, ये वो सब कुछ बताया, उसने एक क्वेश्चन नहीं पूछा। जैसे मैंने उसको सर्विस क्लाउड बोला, उसने पहला क्वेश्चन मुझसे सेल्स क्लाउड से पूछा, जो मुझे आता ही नहीं था क्योंकि सेल्स क्लाउड में काम ही नहीं किया था। तो कभी कभी हमें मतलब इन्वर्टेड इंटरव्यूअर्स मिल जाते हैं, जो मतलब आपसे रिवर्स पूछेंगे, जो आप बोलोगे ना उसका रिवर्स पूछेंगे। जैसे ही आपको ये पता चल जाए कि भाई ये उल्टा वाला इंटरव्यूअर है, ये वो नहीं पूछेगा जो मैं बोलूंगा, तो फिर आप अपना जो बोल रहे हो ना वो कम कर दो, फिर उसी को गेस करने दो कि आपको क्या आता है क्या नहीं आता है, ठीक है। जब तक आपको ये पता चल जाए कि ये उल्टा वाला इंटरव्यूअर है, ये वो पूछेगा जो जी वो पूछेगा ही नहीं जो मैं बोलूंगा, उस समय आप बोलना बंद कर दो, उसी को गेस करने दो कि आपको क्या आता है क्या नहीं आता है, ठीक है। यही अप्रोच हमेशा काम आती है ऐसे इंटरव्यूअर्स के सामने, कि उनको बोलो ही मत कि मुझे ये आता है, क्योंकि जो अगर आप बोल दो कि मुझे एलडब्ल्यूसी आती है, तो वो एलडब्ल्यूसी एक क्वेश्चन नहीं पूछेगा। ऐसे बहुत सारे इंटरव्यूअर होते हैं और पता नहीं क्यों होते हैं, बट होते हैं, ठीक है। तो मिलेंगे
ठीक है,
ऐसे
ठीक
बहुत सारे, बट
ठीक
इनसे ही सीखना है, ठीक है। जो अच्छा इंटरव्यूअर है ना, वो तो तुम्हें कंफर्टेबल फील करा देगा, वो तो तुम्हें बोलेगा अरे ठीक है पानी पियो पानी पियो, वो
एक
सिखाएगा।
चीज तो और नोटिस करी है भैया मैंने, जो जितने भी जूनियर डेवलपर, जूनियर मतलब जो जिनको पास 3 साल या 4 साल का एक्सपीरियंस है ना, जो इंटरव्यू लेते हैं वो थोड़े से ना एटीट्यूड होता है उनके, मतलब इंटरव्यू लेने में। और जो 8 और 9 साल का बंदा है ना, वो
वो
कभी भी
करेंगे
बहुत कामली पूछता है और बहुत इज्जत देता है, ऐसा है।
देखो ऐसा ही होता है, देखो जैसे समझो जो नया नया जिम जाता है ना, वो क्या करता है 4 दिन ऊपर खा करके ना ज्यादा फ्लॉन्ट करता है। और जो सालों साल से जिम कर रहे होते हैं ना, वो बहुत शांत होते हैं, वो उनको गुस्सा आएगा तो वो पानी पी लेंगे, गुस्सा पी जाएंगे। तो जब नॉलेज अपने पास ज्यादा, वो सब जो होते हैं, जो नए नए 3-4 साल के जो डेवलपर होते हैं, वो क्या होते हैं ना, एक्टिवली बहुत काम कर रहे होते हैं, ठीक है। और उनपे काम भी बहुत डाला जाता है, तो उनको ना एक तरह से कभी कभी ना थोड़ी सी ईगो आ जाती है कि यार ये सारा प्रोजेक्ट ही मेरे दम पे चल रहा है, मतलब मैं ही हूँ जो सुबह आता हूँ पूरा कोड लिखता हूँ और मैं ही करता हूँ, तो सारा मेरे दम पे ही चल रहा है। और उसके बाद इंटरव्यू भी मैं ही ले रहा हूँ, तो मतलब एक तरह से कंपनी ही मैं चला रहा हूँ। तो ये चीजें ना धीरे धीरे ये चीजें तुम्हें सीखनी है, जब तुम उस लेवल पे पहुंचोगे तो तुमको ये नहीं करना है, ठीक है। जैसे मैं जिस
ओके।
जब मैं मतलब जूनियर लेवल पे था, तो मेरे पास सीनियर नहीं थे सिखाने वाले, जो सिखाने वाले थे भी वो मतलब बेसिक एडमिन सिखाने वाले थे, डेवलपमेंट सिखाने वाले नहीं थे। स्पेशली कोई ऐसा तो था ही नहीं जो मतलब इंटरव्यू से रिलेटेड क्वेश्चन बताए या टॉपिक बताए। तो जब मैं उस लेवल पे आया, तो मैंने सोचा नहीं यार, ये प्रॉब्लम मैंने फेस करी, तो मुझे ये करना है कि मेरे जूनियर ये फेस ना करें, ठीक है। वैसे ही जब तुम सीनियर बनोगे, तो तुमने ये मेक श्योर करना है कि तुम्हारे जूनियर ऐसी प्रॉब्लम ना फेस करें। तो ऐसे ही करके धीरे धीरे कम्युनिटी ठीक होती है, ठीक है। तो इंटरव्यूअर तो यार हर टाइप के मिलेंगे। मैं एचसीएल वाले इंटरव्यूअर का बता रहा था, तो उसने मेरे से एक क्वेश्चन नहीं पूछा जो मैं उससे चाहता था कि ये मेरे से पूछे, उल्टा सीधा पूछता गया। और उसके बाद उसने मेरे से बोला, देखो मोहित ऐसा है कि आई हैव अ सेट एजेंडा फॉर द इंटरव्यू, एंड आई हैव अ सेट सेट ऑफ क्वेश्चंस, I have predefined set of questions. I will only ask those questions, no matter what reference you give of topics. So if I'm going to ask a question, I'm going to ask a question. Don't try to elaborate your answers so that I will ask, because वो समझ गया कि ये बंदा एक्सप्लेन कर रहा है। और नॉर्मली ऐसा होता है, हम एक्सप्लेन करते हैं, उस एक्सप्लेनेशन से क्वेश्चन निकल के आते हैं। बट वो ये समझ गया कि ये बंदा मुझे अपनी डायरेक्शन से भटका रहा है, और वो पहले से ही डायरेक्शन लेकर के आया था कि मुझे पहला क्वेश्चन ये पूछना है, दूसरा क्वेश्चन ये पूछना है, नो मैटर मैं आंसर क्या दूं। तो उस वो 10 क्वेश्चन लेकर के आया था, उसको उन्हीं 10 क्वेश्चन के वही जवाब चाहिए थे जो उसने लिख रखे थे, दैट्स इट। उसको इधर उधर का कुछ सुनना ही नहीं था। तो फिर ऐसे जब
प्योर इट
इंटरव्यू,
मीन से।
तो ऐसे ऐसे जब इंटरव्यूअर होते हैं तो हम उनसे सीखते हैं, उनके क्वेश्चंस को नोट डाउन करते हैं अगर हमें कोई टॉपिक उनमें से नहीं आता था, और ये कोशिश कर, हम ये नहीं सोचते कि ये इंटरव्यू में मेरा क्यों नहीं हुआ या ये इंटरव्यूअर ऐसा क्यों था, हम ये सोचते हैं इसने क्वेश्चन क्या पूछे, अगर यही क्वेश्चन कोई और इंटरव्यूअर पूछता तो मैं आंसर दे पाता या नहीं दे पाता। ठीक है, इंटरव्यूअर से लड़ाई हो जाना बहुत नॉर्मल सी बात है, और बहुत बार हो जाती है, मेरी तो कईयों बार हुई शुरू में। ठीक है, वो बहुत ही नॉर्मल बात है, बट सीखा मैंने सिर्फ इतना है कि अपना टेम्पर खोने से कुछ फायदा नहीं है इंटरव्यू में। ठीक है, अपने आप को काम ही रखना है, हम जिस हिसाब से जितनी एकदम मॉन्क बन करके बैठ करके आंसर देना है, जो भी हम देते हैं, अगर नहीं कुछ नहीं आता तो जैसे बोलना है वैसे बोलेंगे, जो आता है तो जैसे बोलना है वैसे बोलेंगे, वो कैसे बोल रहा है उससे मतलब ही नहीं। ठीक है, क्योंकि हमें अपने आप को खराब नहीं करना है उसके चक्कर में, हमें अपने आप को improve ही करना है एवरी इंटरव्यू। ठीक है, तो अगर कोई खराब इंटरव्यू मिल जाता है वो तो ज्यादा ही कुछ सिखा के जाता है, उससे तो ज्यादा ही सीख जाता है। ठीक है,
ठीक ठीक।
Chalo guys, I will cover navigation service tomorrow and we will cover the questions on the web component. Whatever questions we have on the sheet, whatever the sheet Dharmesh provided, we will cover all the questions in the LWC tomorrow. So this will, when we cover the questions directly, this will cover a lot of other things like what is shadow dome, what is, the difference between bubbles and compose. So all those questions we will cover in the tomorrow session. And tomorrow session might extend, okay?
Hi Mohit. Hi Mohit.
Yes, hi Dharmesh.
I asked some question in chat. Can you answer that?
Just a second. Okay, Dharmesh. If interviewer asked any coding question like trigger LWC component, is decision making for? Yeah, I mean, obviously they can ask questions in. See, if he is asking you to write a trigger, okay, then that trigger is the major decision factor. Okay, decision making factor. Sometimes what happens is that depending on which company we are working for, they have their own set of rules for an interview. Okay, like in my current company, there is a that whenever you will take a technical round, you need to judge him technically by seeing how they write code. Okay, so I have a limitation that I have to ask person to write code in front of me, and then whatever code he writes, I need to copy that code and paste it on his application. So we have a tool where candidate apply and then their application process and all. So in the technical interview feedback section, will have to paste his code and give my opinion on what he written. So those companies will require you to write code, and then based on the code quality, you will be judged. Okay, but when I worked for service-based organization like IBM, Cognizant, and Capgemini, there was no such rule. It is on you if you want candidate to write a trigger or LWC or not. But there was no hard and fast rule. The only requirement was that candidate should be good. If you are able to judge him technically without asking him to write a code, it is on you. So when I was in IBM, I used to take a lot of interview, but I never asked candidate to write a trigger. Or sometimes I used to ask how to write a socket query for some aggregate functions and all, but I don't prefer to write trigger, because what happens is now you will have to give him at least 30 minutes to write triggers. Okay, and if I'm taking an 1 hour interview and if he's taking 30 minutes to write a trigger, those 30 minutes are waste for me. And normally I want to communicate, and very rarely we get a candidate who communicates while writing code. Otherwise, most of the time I gave the scenario, they will keep on thinking within themselves, like what to write, what not to write, no matter if they are writing right code or wrong code, but they will never communicate with the interviewer. And that makes the interview very boring and dull and bad. So that's not my interview taking style, but yes, there will be interviewer who will be asking you to write trigger. And then if they are asking you to write trigger, that trigger will be the deciding factor. So when I was not fresher, around 2 years of experience, I mostly worked on the service cloud, so I never got much to write on the trigger. So I gave one interview for a Mohali-based company, and they asked me to write a trigger. Whenever we create an opportunity, we have to create a task and then assign that task to the opportunity. It was a very simple trigger scenario, and I was able to write that trigger. But the only mistake I did was the moment we attach that opportunity to task, like with the with the what ID. Instead of what ID, I wrote that task.opportunity ID. I just assume that there might be a lookup to opportunity directly. So I write task.opportunity ID is equal to opportunity.id. And because of that simple single line, I was rejected. Because
Hi. Yeah, currently I am working with Vachusa. So what happened? First, they have taken like an interview, like only theoretical base. But currently, they are doing? They are doing judging on only this coding base, because they're saying like he have given some candidate to our client. So client also taking some interview, and client some candidate not able to write one single line of code. So that's the issue. They're saying like you need to write code. That is the major.
obviously that will be an expectation from you. So what happens is that when they will send your profile to client will obviously expect, because they will highlight your profile like this is the candidate, 4x certified, 4 years of experience and all. So the client will expect them to, write the code and all. And this happens a lot in the service-based companies, that you hire a candidate and that candidate was able to clear the interview with the theoretical knowledge, but was not able to write code. So when they deploy such candidate in the client location, they get exposed. Okay, and then client will get very bad feedback for the candidate, and there will be some heated arguments between the client and your company. So that might be, they might have happened multiple times, and that is why now client might have made it mandatory for your company to make sure that candidate you hire is able to write code. Because I mean, there are different types of candidates available. Some of them are taking proxy help, and then able to clear the interview, but when they reach the office, they fail to survive in those situations. So see, obviously if they are hiring you as a Salesforce developer, they will expect you to write code, right? And that is not a over expectation, that is the normal expectation to have. I have worked with people from Virtusha when it was a very new company, when I was with IBM, and they gave us 3 developers, and one developer was good, but other 2 was garbage. They did not even know what is queue, what is public group, and they then Virtusa told us that they are 3+ years of experience. They were getting 1 lakh rupees from Paytm every month for those garbage candidates. So that happens a lot. And see, Virtusa also need to make profit out of candidates. So those candidates were freshers. In reality, they were freshers, and their salary was around 11,000, 12,000 only. But for those candidates, they were charging around 1 lakh rupees per month. So obviously there was a gap. So that happens a lot. But as a developer, you need to make sure that you are comfortable in writing triggers and LWC code in an interview. Okay, there is no shortcut on that.